So, a bunch of Democratic senators threatened the Supreme Court with restructuring if they don't vote the way that they want them to vote on this upcoming case about New York's ordinance that they had, where people were denied the ability to transport firearms to a second location outside of city limits or even a second location outside of the state. Keep in mind you that uh, pretty much all safe transport laws dictate that you have to uh, have the firearm in the trunk and ammunition and the magazine separate in the trunk, meaning in two different locked boxes most of the time. That would be the safest way. It's not 100% clear, but I'm from New Jersey, so the law is very similar. Jersey's just as strict. Jersey's trying to be New York. Governor Murphy is trying to turn New Jersey into New York. We were fine with the gun laws that we had, which were already restrictive, and then he just added like 15 more gun laws, right? On top of, reducing the magazine capacity. But the day of reckoning is coming for the Democrats. Like I said, I've pretty much walked away from the Democrat Party. I've walked away from them for several reasons. The nanny state, the we know what's best for you. I hate using the term, personal responsibility because I feel that white conservatives overuse it to death, which is why, they're out there blowing their heads off in the Midwest because they want to act like, everybody who, needs help or assistance or, any sort of government program is lazy. And then when they need it, they don't have those support systems. And so they're just out there aloof and they can't handle it because a lot of white folks can't handle setback because they are the dominant members of society who are the most entitled in this country. And, they can't handle it. Black people are used to double digit unemployment. We're used to that. It's always been double digit unemployment for us. We're used to setback. We're used to not getting what we want. A lot of white men are not used to not getting what we want, but I'm not trying to go off on a diatribe about that. But um what was I saying? Uh yeah, I brought up the whole personal responsibility thing. Yeah. So you got that whole aspect of personal responsibility, where it's just like, look, I get it. There's certain factors that impact people in their lives. You know, I understand, right? I talk about that myself with the things that have impacted the black community. And you got people living in poverty, and there's all type of that creates social dysfunction, and that's going to spill out into other areas. But at the same time, I'm not going to rest my hat on that, right? I acknowledge it. I say it's a problem that does need to be corrected, but I'm not going to rest my hat on that. Like, it's like, when it comes to black people and kids out of wedlock, it's not like, white people are standing behind black people, pushing them in the back, trying to get you to fornicate and impregnate a girl when you're not financially in the position to impregnate the girl. Now, what they might do is deny you access to economic opportunities and make it difficult for you to justify having a family, which essentially is genocide. But I'm saying they're not literally behind you, pushing you into the girl, right? So you got the personal responsibility, the nanny state, you got the identity politics, you got the basically kicking out the black people because black people have been leaving the Democratic Party, but I'm saying the Democratic Party is abandoning black people because black people are calling out the Democratic Party on what they haven't done for the black community, despite them being in control of many aspects of the black community for the last 60 years or so, and black people are still disproportionately living in poverty. I'm not saying that Republicans have a much better answer. They got their whole base that they have to satisfy. Republicans have done the same thing to poor working whites living in Appalachia that the Democrats have done to poor working class blacks in the inner city. They've done the same thing. You got people sitting around praying and wishing for coal mines to come back, working $12 an hour, putting the damn rivets in the ceiling of the coal mine, which is probably the most dangerous job that you can have in a coal mine. And I actually know somebody who's doing that for $12 an hour. Okay, $12 an hour, and you're literally putting in rivets in the most dangerous part of the mine where the roof can collapse. And you got people down there in Alabama working in mines making $100,000 a year. You see, something's wrong with that. Something's wrong, seriously wrong with that picture. But like I said, you got people, white people, who control, the corporations and institutions and everything else. They don't want to pay people. Wages have not gone up in, 10 years or more. This is both a white problem and a black problem. It is not, exclusively, one side or the other. This is something that black people have been known. This is something that white people are only now waking up to. I've warned white people about their whole, if it happens to the blacks and it doesn't happen to me, it's good. I'm like, it's eventually going to happen to you. We are the canaries in the coal mine. What happens to us first eventually creeps its way back around to you. So you need to wake up. But you can't get most white Americans to wake up. And that's a whole different conversation. Right? So you got the identity politics, putting white people on one side of the room and then trying to create this rainbow coalition on the other side of the room while simultaneously ignoring, neglecting, and kicking black people out the Democratic Party and replacing them with the Hispanics, which are a larger minority population in America than African Americans. Right? So you got that going on. And, you have this obsession with gun control, which I've already told black people that's the dumbest thing for you to subscribe to. Again, Elaine, Arkansas, Rosewood, Florida, Tulsa, Oklahoma, freaking the insurrection of Wilmington, North Carolina, 1898, right? All these instances of black people being purged and, kicked out of communities, even when they had businesses. What frustrates me about white supremacy and racism, I always want to swear up that black people never had anything. Black people never established anything. Black people literally came out of slavery with nothing but their shirts on their back. And by the late 1800s, they had established businesses and communities that had their own busing companies, their own baseball teams, and, so on and so forth. And jealous white people came in there and burnt these communities down to the ground, and then got the audacity to turn around and talk about how black people ain't never established anything for themselves, right? And then black people still go off to World War II and the Korean War and the Vietnam War and the Iraq War and Iraq and Afghanistan and still fight for this country. And then when a black man gets pulled over in 2017 or 2018 and whatnot, the cop blast just blows them away. And then white people wonder why Colin Kaepernick is taking a knee, like they're surprised and shit. But anyway, getting back to the Democrats and just the way that they just been screwing up. Okay, they're like tone deaf. They're not hearing anybody. And the thing is like this is a reckoning when it comes to their gun laws. Democrats thought that for the longest time that they could go out there and just do whatever the hell they want to do. And they could just violate everybody's rights like they've done in New York because, as Clarence Thomas pointed out, a black man, a black Supreme Court justice that everybody in the black community wants to swear up and down as a coon, and he's the only one up there essentially, voicing and speaking out, against, the way that the Supreme Court has neglected the Second Amendment and let these lower courts basically uphold liberal agendas. And that's what's so funny about these senators threatening the Supreme Court, right? Because they're threatening the Supreme Court with restructuring because they're saying that the Supreme Court is too biased because it has this conservative bias and it has voted on things like gerrymandering, which I don't agree with, right? But they have this bias, but there's been a clear bias in the lower courts, which seem to be overwhelmingly liberal judges, like out there in California, the Ninth Circuit Court and the Third Circuit Court. Where when it comes to gun laws, they've had these liberal interpretations, about a militia and this, that, and the third, right? But yet black people were denied access to firearms because it was an individual right. And the whole concept of recognizing black people as equal citizens to white people, the fear was that they would have access to firearms just like regular white citizens in America. So clearly it was an individual right. Had nothing to do with the militia, because a slave population that was just chattel labor a couple of years prior obviously had no ties to any sort of militia. It is an individual right. The idea of a collective right doesn't even make sense without having an individual right. It doesn't even make sense. Oh, you can protest, but only collectively. Like, it doesn't make any sense. You know, But and then even the interpretation that that the Second Amendment isn't progressive and it doesn't change with the times. That's like saying that free speech was only verbal speech because there was no internet in the past, and so internet speech can be regulated, but free speech, verbal speech, can't be regulated because that was at the time of the founding fathers. But internet speech can be regulated because the internet wasn't around when the founding fathers created free speech, right? It doesn't make any damn sense. Okay. Well, where am I going with this? Yeah. So the Supreme Court, they've declined to, it's weird. It's like they don't even have to. It's not even a matter of declining. Like, they don't even get a reason as to why they decline a case. They get to sit up there and decide whether they want to rule on something and whatnot, and they have to have 4 judges at least agree that they want to see the case. And Clarence Thomas called them out on it. Right? Because in no other situation, whenever there was, a case, like a major case that came down, like let's say Brown versus Board of Education, which integrated the schools where, black people could go to, white schools, and because they said it was unfair and that separate but equal wasn't really, a thing. Well, after that, there were challenges to that, and then there were clarifications on what Brown versus Board really meant. After the Heller case, there wasn't really any clarification. The Supreme Court has pretty much shot down every case after the Heller case. Okay, Heller and McDonald were like the last cases that we've had. They haven't, Scalia gave us clarification that it is an individual right and you may possess a firearm in your home. And, the Supreme Court has not stated on outside of the home. They stopped there. Right? Now, the vast majority of the United States has concealed carry. Okay? It is a minority of states that do not have concealed carry. It is a minority. It is not the majority. So when Democrats and liberals come through and they want to act like they have majority, like consent on this, when they run around and 90% of Americans want background checks and this, that, and the third, it is a lie. The majority of the United States, you can carry concealed guns. And again, people who carry concealed guns go through they are not the problem. Every once in a while, you may have a person who has a concealed carry permit or whatever. But since people can buy guns anyway, having a concealed carry permit is irrelevant, because anybody can literally not have a concealed carry permit, grab the gun that they have in their house, and then go and then do a terroristic act. So the idea that the problem is concealed carry, card carrying concealed CCW holders is ridiculous. But you see, even what has happened after El Paso and Dayton, Ohio. Like, you got Schumer up there talking about banning body armor. Oh, we're going to ban body armor. I'm like, body armor is passive self-defense. Passive, but because the shooter used body armor, now we must ban body armor. So if anybody does anything wrong with something, we must ban it, right? And even this whole idea that, oh well, look at what the other states are doing, so therefore we should be in line with other states. Notice how that's not said when it comes to guns. But like in New York, there was a video clip. I haven't posted it yet, but Governor Cuomo, you can find the clip on YouTube somewhere. He goes and says, we're talking about marijuana laws. And again, I am all for the legalization of marijuana. People going to smoke it anyway. I say tax it and, spend the money on better schools and stuff like that. Right. But Cuomo said, well, We might as well legalize it because the states around us are legalizing it. New Jersey's going to legalize it. Pennsylvania's going to legalize it. These are two states that have borders with New York, right? And I'm like, wow, funny how you take that approach on marijuana, that just because it's Pennsylvania plans on legalizing it and New Jersey plans on we should legalize it too. But when it comes to guns, we don't care what Pennsylvania's gun laws are. We will not be legalizing, CCW and the ability for people to exercise their Second Amendment rights. I mean, the Democrats have literally become, these pompous, arrogant, super rich, wealthy people who think they know what's best for the masses. Again, I'm not a fan of conservatives. I'm not a fan of conservative Southern strategy, and the way that the Democrats pander to all the minorities and the conservatives pander to all the white working class people. I'm not a fan of any of this. The number one issue in America is class. It is not race. But again, if I can't get the poor white folks to freaking recognize that and form Voltron with me, that's not my problem. That's their problem, right? I mean, it's my problem by proxy, but I'm saying that's not my personal problem. That is their problem that I'm trying to wake them up to, but they won't wake up to it, because they got their biases and their superiority complexes and all that other stuff, right? But when it comes to the Supreme Court in this case, it's like, no, the New York, the Democrats have overstepped their boundaries when it comes to these gun laws, and they've been empowered by these lower courts and the Supreme Court's unwillingness to examine these cases and look at these cases and even allow them to be held up to the light of scrutiny. They've had an unwillingness to do that until Donald Trump came in there and put conservative judges on the Supreme Court. And so now they're scared. They're scared shitless right now, because what's going to happen with this case is this ordinance is it might be judged, and you got the New Jersey Rogers case right behind it. It might be judged that that this is unconstitutional. And that basically the same thing that happened in the Heller case, which is it is an individual right and you can possess a firearm in your home, will also now translate to, and people have a constitutional right to keep and bear arms on their person and be able to walk around with a firearm on their person. Again, keep in mind, like I said, New Jersey bans BB guns, slingshots, and they even had tasers and stun guns banned. These are non-lethal means of self-defense. But you can have a knife, but you can't have any of those other things, right? That's how ridiculous liberals are. They really buy into and believe this whole concept of we can keep you safer. Just rely on the police that have no duty, no obligation to protect you, and you can't sue them. That's what's so hilarious about them trying to sue gun manufacturers, with the idea that if somebody misuses your product, that that we should be able to sue you. But if police officers that have no duty to protect me don't show up and protect me in my time of need, because I live in a state where I can't protect myself because I don't have a gun, right? That I'm not able to sue the police and say, well, you didn't get there in time. You didn't protect me or my family. One of my family members died because your police officer's response time was too slow. I can't sue the police. But these people, these anti-gun people, think that they should be able to sue gun manufacturers because somebody goes and misuses a firearm illegally. Okay, they literally want to usher us into this like Minority Report world, this Big Brother world where the government has complete oversight. And what the Democrats are doing is the same thing that Bush did with the damn Patriot Act. Right? You go in there and say, oh, look, there's terrorists. Oh, give up some of your privacy. Which is what the Patriot Act is. Let us spy on you for your own safety. Give up your freedom for safety. right? And now you see what Facebook is doing. You see what Google is doing, gathering up all your information, giving it, sharing it with the government, right? You see what Eric Snowden exposed. You see, this is why you don't give that shit up. But unfortunately, we have too many people in America, black, white, or otherwise, that they're uninformed. They're slow. We have one of the crappiest educational systems in America, because the educational system in America was not designed to establish an informed and educated and critically thinking populace. I don't care what race you are. Most of the stuff that I see and hear on the internet coming from people is pure emotion. It's not facts. They literally sit there and they just look at the headlines, look at the tabloids, and depending on what side of the political spectrum they're on, that's what they go with. It's literally people bitching and crying and moaning about who they think their favorite football team is when it comes to politics. We're on the Republican football team, we're on the Democratic football team, and talking about who they think is going to win the season and whatnot. And these are the type of people, they don't even know the names of the players on the team, but they want to tell you about which side has the best football team. It's retardedness. But this is what American politics has come down to. This is why Socrates feared democracy, because he felt that the only people who should vote, who should have the right, the privilege to vote, are people who are informed on the situation. But most people are not informed on the situation. They go around and they listen to their favorite talking heads and personalities and whatnot who can skew information because they're too lazy to look it up for themselves. It's like, well, that's not really what he said. What he actually said was this. Whether it's freaking the Pac-Man dude, or Secular Talk, or Steven Crowder, or Rush Limbaugh, Glenn Beck, Ben Shapiro, Ann Coulter, who's other liberal, Roland Martin, like all these talking heads that are literally being paid to try to swing you in their favor. And they tap into whatever issues you have. Oh, if you're white, oh, you got to be over here. If you're black, oh, you got to be over here. I'm like, is there any nuance to any of this stuff? What if I'm socially liberal, fiscally conservative, but pro Second Amendment? Where do I go? Which side? Is there any place for me to go? No, the only thing I can do is basically say, oh, I'm an independent or a libertarian, and then pick the less of two evils. That's the only thing that you can do in American politics. It's shitty. It's a shitty system with shitty choices. That's what it is. And so, again, getting back to the gun issue, because this is a gun channel, I'm like, yeah, these Democrats are terrified. People are going to be coming in New York with their guns on their hip. They're going to try to rush and scramble to create all type of restricted laws. And there will be more court cases after this. Because the first thing Democrats are going to try to do is, because that's what Murphy did try to do in New Jersey, but thanks to Senator Sweeney, who's in charge of the freaking House or whatever, the House or the Senate in Jersey, like he blocked it. He was like, okay, like, I'm a Democrat. Yeah, okay, we're going to stop gun violence and all that. I'll let you pass this, and this, but you're not passing this because this is ridiculous. You already just passed like a dozen bills like 6 months ago. Calm down. Calm yourself down. Because you're really agitating and pissing off the Second Amendment community. Like, this is ridiculous. It's already bad enough, the 10-round magazine limit. Right? How the hell do you fight a tyrannical government with a 10-round magazine limit when the tyrannical government's coming at you with small arms that have 30-round magazines or more? Right? I mean, talk about getting into a boxing ring with one hand tied behind your back. People talking about, oh, that can't happen here. I direct you to Hong Kong and what's going on in Hong Kong right now. Like I said, white people got short memories. I mean, it's like I had a Hispanic woman tell me, it was hilarious. She was like, yeah, we call the United States the what do they call it? The United States of amnesia. Because that's what the United States is. The United States of amnesia. Again, I pointed out the Holocaust. She comes from Colombia. And they had the whole terrible issue of what they had with the narco economy and Pablo Escobar and Manuel Noriega and all this. Well, that was Panama, but I'm saying, just all that whole drug stuff that went in the 80s and the 90s. All that stuff was going on, that whole Iran, Contra-Ing, Oliver North, Reagan, dumping drugs in the black community, bringing them up from South America, right? Giving weapons to Iran, all that shit. Okay? So, she's like, look, she's seen it. She's seen the sort of, the situations where you have, criminals that have more guns than the government, or just as many guns as the government, and the people are in the middle, unarmed, and they can't do anything. You got a corrupt government on one side, you got cartels on the other side. Like, what are you supposed to do? What are you supposed to do other than try to flee the country and go to another country? When you have no ability to fight back. But anyway, that's a whole different conversation. The point is the Democrats are freaking out, especially the New Yorkers. They're freaking out because if the Supreme Court comes through with their conservative 5-4 majority and basically says that this is unconstitutional and you do have a right to keep and bear arms outside your home, not saying that you don't have to have a license or that it can't be regulated in some way. But again, like I said, this is going to bring up even more cases after that. It's going to be a whole bunch of cases after that. Because the Democratic governments will do everything in their power to deny people. And like I was saying before I got sidetracked, Governor Murphy, he was trying to increase the fees to basically make it cost prohibitive, which would have a direct impact on African Americans, right? Due to the wealth disparity and wealth inequality between whites and blacks in America. It's like, oh yeah, you can carry a permit, but it's going to cost you, $600, $700, $800 for you to even get in the door. Oh, you got to have 60 hours of safety course training for fire. All that stuff is just red tape and barriers that they're hoping that you don't have the finances or the time to be able to go through the process, okay, so that you can get your permit, so that you can exercise your Second Amendment rights. Right. So there's going to have to be lawsuits, and black people should be the one to file those lawsuits, because when it comes to the system of white supremacy and racism in America in the historical context that it is in, gun laws were created to keep guns out of the hands of your black ass first. So for black Americans today in 2019 to be anti-Second Amendment, when you are living in one of the most racist countries, that the openly racist countries that try to deny it, they try to claim, its benevolence. It doesn't want to see its own reflection in the mirror. Okay. But when you are dealing with a situation like there is no excuse for you to be anti-Second Amendment. You want to talk about inner city black on black crime? Come and talk to me about economics. You want to talk about inner city black crime? You're still going to have to defend yourself against the assholes in your own community that even if opportunities were there, they still love the game, right? As was said in the movie Paid in Full. They still love the game, as Mekhi Phifer said. I love the game. I feel like one of them ball players, because they're good at what they do. They're good at crime. They're good at selling drugs. Unfortunately, they because of the way that society is structured, they got steered down that path, and they're fearful because they don't know any other way to be the admired individual with the money that they have, that they got through ill-begotten means in their own community. You know what I mean? It's like Negan in freaking Walking Dead. What did he say? What was he before he was Negan? He was freaking a high school gym teacher or something like that. But in the apocalypse, he's Negan. He's killing people with a spiked bat. He's the ringleader. He's the boss. If he goes back, if the zombies disappear and then society is rebirthed again and fixed again, what is he going to do? Go back to being a high school gym teacher? See, there's certain people who thrive in a post-apocalyptic world. There's people who thrive in a broken system. Okay? They turn into Immortan Joe from freaking Mad Max and the Road Warriors on some Fury Road type of shit. With Furiosa and whatnot. They thrive in that environment. So again, if you're trying to have an intact community, you're going to have to put some of those individuals down, regardless of the opportunities are there. That's why, despite the white community having a disproportionate amount of wealth relative to the black community, they still have to maintain an enforcement arm. You're still going to have knuckleheads in a community. You're still going to have people that want to break the rules and say, fuck that, I'm not going to, operate like that. Because they're not good students, they're not the brightest person in the store. Not everybody is going to thrive in this system. I think that the system needs to be as such to where most people can thrive. That way you can get, it works for most people. So it's like, look, man, like it was in America in the freaking 50s and 60s. You know what I mean? You didn't have to be the smartest tool in the drawer. All you had to do was be willing to get up every morning and go to work and put in your, anywhere from 8 to 12 hours of work, and as long as you did that, you were able to buy a home, you were able to support yourself and support your family, you were able to be the patriarch of your household, you were able to be a respected member in the community, you were able to contribute to things, and a lot of people were cool with that. Granted, everybody, some people hated it. But I'm saying it was something. It wasn't like you couldn't say, okay, this wasn't a decent situation. You're making money, you can buy and you can do what you want, yeah, you want a Cadillac, get a Cadillac. You want a Dodge, get a Dodge. Whatever you want, you could do it. You want to go on vacation, full medical and dental and everything, you were good. Right? But that's dead, that's died, that's gone. You know why? Because the rest of the world has caught up. You have corporations now that can just simply, all they have to do is go to another country for, lower wages, higher return on investment, and then think that they can bring the products back into America and sell it to American people. The stupid thing is they're cutting their nose off to spite their face because if American people don't have jobs, then they're not consumers. And if they're not consumers, it doesn't matter how cheap you manufacture a product outside the United States. When you bring it back into the United States, nobody can afford to buy it anyway. That's what people don't get. It doesn't matter that Apple computers are built in China. The fact of the matter is an Apple computer is still $1,200. I don't have $1,200 to throw around like that to buy an Apple computer. Right? There's a lot of people that are in that type of situation. Back in the day, you had people who recognized the better I pay my employees, the more money they have to spend. Hell, chances are they might buy a car coming from the very factory that they produce it in. This keeps the economy going. But for some reason, somewhere along the line, corporations just believe that they can just basically cut the human element out of it, create more and more profits, decrease wages, and that somehow that they're still going to be able to thrive. And only cater to like 5% of the population, maybe the top 20% of the population, while the 80% lives in abject poverty and is, drowning in freaking opioids. You think that's really a sustainable system? But this is what the white elites have done. Nobody's done this but the white elites. It ain't black people. It ain't Asian people. It ain't Hispanic people. They're not the ones that control the system. This is a white system. You can't sit there and say, this is a white nation, this is a Christian nation, and then blame anybody else other than the white Christians who are in positions of power to call the shots and make shit happen. They're the ones that are fucking everybody else in the ass with no KY jelly. They're the ones that are screwing everybody over. It ain't everybody. It ain't black people. It ain't all other people. They are not the shot callers in the situation. They're just along for the ride. Along for the ride. That is what they are. And yes, they can even be screwing their own people, like people calling out Elijah Cummings about Baltimore. Okay? Some of that is, the black politicians' fault. But some of that is not the black politicians' fault, as black people don't control the economic landscape of Baltimore. They never have and never did. So as a result, when major manufacturing leaves, so do the jobs. And when those jobs leave, So do the jobs that support the people who have the jobs in the factory. This is why Detroit is the way that it is. You close down the auto factory, you move it somewhere else. Okay, auto workers no longer freaking can, obviously make wages and work in the factory that's no longer there. Then everybody who supports the auto workers and the money that comes from the auto workers, they also leave. If I'm a doctor and I'm in Detroit and I'm providing healthcare services for auto workers, if the auto workers lose their job and then they sell their house and then they leave, then as a doctor, what patients am I treating? Who am I treating? Nobody lives here anymore. Who am I treating? That means I pick up my shit and I leave, right? If I'm the guy that owns the diner right across the street from the factory and the factory shuts down and everybody leaves, who's going to eat at my diner now? So now I leave. So now the diner closes, right? If I'm the store that supplies work clothes, equipment, hard hats, all this OSHA stuff, right, that they need to work in the factory, if I'm providing that for auto workers and the auto workers no longer are working in the auto factory and they're not getting their wages and they're not working, so therefore they don't need my steel-toed boots and my OSHA, yellow hard hats or whatever they have in the damn factory with the jumpsuits and everything else, right, then what happens? They don't they're not going to come in my store. I'm going to leave, right? Right? If I'm a hospital that's servicing the area and everybody's leaving, right? The hospital is a for-profit institution. But if everybody's leaving and I don't have any patients, well, guess what? The hospital has to what? Shut down and close. You see? They just shut down Hahnemann in Philadelphia. Hahnemann Hospital is closed. They closed their doors. You see? So, it's like, like I said, I see white people in the comment section. They want to talk about Detroit and its liberal control. This is economics. If you're sitting there talking about, oh, the blacks took over, you're a racist. Point blank, period. The blacks did not come in there with a hostile takeover. Walk into a GM factory and be like, pull out a sword and then hold it up in the air like Lion-O from the freaking Thundercats and say, we're taking over. That's not what happened. The auto industry left, white people left, black people were stuck there upside down on their freaking houses, and it's been that way ever since. There's no tax base for the city to implement anything it wants to implement because the industry there died. The life's blood of the city died. It's like a gold mine gone bust. If the gold mine it becomes empty and there's no more gold, that's the end of the gold rush. That has nothing to do with race. If you say otherwise, you are a racist. Point blank, period. Because you're so blinded by your bigotry that you can't even do math. So anyway, that's all I wanted to say. I wanted to get that off of my chest. For all you white people out there that, are still stuck in the matrix and you won't wake up because you're all in your feelings about race and all that other stuff. I can't break it down any better, But again, when it comes to this Second Amendment stuff, oh yeah, this is a reckoning for the Democrats. They're going to freak out, and it is going to continue to be a fight. And I can't even believe they took it so far as to even threaten the Supreme Court, because it just shows you how divided the country is and how this country may break out into hot civil war, open violence. And the thing is I'm looking at the left like, and what are you going to do about it with your pro Second Amendment ass with the weapons that you don't have? Who do you think you're talking to? It's like when you see like a woman getting loud with a man, like she's gonna fuck him up. Like really, like you gonna whoop his ass? You know what I mean? Dude's just towering over her. She's like 5'1" and he's like 6 foot. It's like, what? Like, are you like, sit your ass down? Like, go sit down somewhere. You know what I mean? You done let all that, I'm gender equality. You done let all that shit go to your head. See, men know this. That's why men size other men up. Yeah. Well, I'm your equal. Yeah, no, we know that that's not the case. You see somebody in the gym benching 405 pounds, you ain't his equal. Okay? When it comes down to it, he can beat your ass. If shit comes down to blows, he can beat your ass. We are not so civilized that you can't get your ass beat. And that's what Democrats don't realize. You know, we need to get rid of the guns. You know, I'm like a woman saying that crap. I'm like a man can still crush your windpipe. I don't know what you think, and that's why you should be pro Second Amendment yourself, because at least with a gun, you stand a fighting chance. But you ain't gonna be no 5'1" and going up against a man that's 6 foot and think that you're actually gonna be able to fight him off. You know, unless you got some matrix moves like Trinity, that's not gonna happen. I'm sorry, it's not. It's just the ugly reality of the situation. But you look at the Democrats again. People have already made videos about this. It's like Democrats ain't ready for war. So y'all live in the cities. Y'all don't have any damn guns. You're supported by the people who live in the Midwest. That is the breadbasket of the United States. Those people are self-reliant and self-sufficient. They can live off the land for weeks at a time. On top of the fact that they grow all the crops. You know what I'm saying? Just imagine if middle America they went on strike. The truckers went on strike. Yeah, we're not going to deliver anything to any of these liberal cities. They can shut the whole country down. Truck drivers alone, which you already know, majority of truck drivers are not only majority white, but they're also majority conservative in their thinking. So if they wanted to sit there and be like, you know what? We're not going to be shipping anything into San Francisco anymore. We're not going to be shipping anything into Los Angeles anymore. We're not going to be shipping anything into New York anymore. They can shut the whole country down. I'm sitting there looking at Democrats like, you see, y'all motherfuckers don't know who you playing with. See, black people, since we've been in this very unique situation, there's a number of, we understand the dynamics of power. We speak the language of power. Yeah, I'm one of them smart Negroes that the white elites that fear. I'm the one that they scared of. I'm the one that they want to shut up, which is probably why they shut down my other YouTube channel. I'm the one that they want to silence. Because I know I'm awake. I'm woke. So they don't want me out here waking other people up. And I'm telling you, the number one people they don't want me waking up. They don't want me waking up white folks. Because they most certainly don't want another Bacon's Rebellion. Anyway, that's all I got to say. That's my video. New Jersey gun laws out.